players do not listen. Inside the dressing room chaos that left Ruben Amorim absolutely furious. Welcome back to United Daily Updates, your most trusted source for all things Manchester United. If you are watching this for the first time, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel right now. We bring you the real stories, the inside information, and the honest analysis that other channels will not give you. We do not hide from the truth, and we always tell you what is really happening at our beloved club. Today we need to talk about something serious. Something that goes beyond just losing a football match. Because what happened against Everton on Monday night was not just about tactics or bad luck. It was about players ignoring their manager's instructions. It was about a lack of discipline that left Ruben Amorim absolutely furious behind closed doors. Reports have emerged that Amorim was beside himself with rage after the match, specifically targeting the left side of his team for completely disregarding his tactical instructions. When players do not listen to their manager, it disrupts the entire flow of the game. And that is exactly what happened at Old Trafford. The result? A humiliating 1-0 defeat to 10-man Everton that has thrown Manchester United's season into crisis once again. So let me take you inside the dressing room drama, explain what went wrong, reveal which players ignored Amorim's orders, and tell you what this means for the future of Manchester United. This is going to be a deep dive into the chaos behind the scenes at Old Trafford. Grab your tea and let's get into it. The match that exposed everything. Before we get into the dressing room drama, let me quickly recap what happened on the pitch. Because to understand Amorim's fury, you need to understand just how badly things went wrong. The gift that United could not use. In the 13th minute, Everton midfielder Idrissa Gana Gueye got sent off for slapping his own teammate Michael Keane during an argument. A straight red card. Everton were down to 10 men with over 75 minutes still to play at Old Trafford. This should have been a gift for Manchester United. Playing against 10 men at home is the kind of advantage that top teams capitalize on every single time. You have the extra player, you have the home crowd, you have everything going for you. But United could not take advantage. Despite having 77 minutes to play against 10 men, they could not even manage to score a single goal. In fact, they went behind when Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall scored a brilliant strike in the 29th minute, and they never recovered. When the final whistle blew, it was 1-0 to Everton. One of the most embarrassing defeats in Manchester United's recent history. And Ruben Amorim was absolutely livid. The numbers tell a damning story. Let me give you some statistics that show just how bad this was. Manchester United had 75% of the possession. They put in 38 crosses during the match. They had multiple chances to score. And yet they could not find the back of the net even once. Everton barely had to attack after scoring their goal. They sat deep, they defended with 10 men, and they blocked everything United threw at them. It was a masterclass in defensive organisation from David Moyes, and a complete embarrassment for Manchester United. This was United's first ever Premier League home defeat after seeing the opposition have a player sent off. Think about that for a moment. In all the years of Premier League history at Old Trafford, United have never lost a home game when the other team went down to 10 men. Until now. The reports that revealed Amorim's fury. Now let me tell you about what happened after the match. Because while Amorim was frustrated in his public interviews, the real anger came behind closed doors. According to sources last night, a respected insider with over 680,000 followers on social media and a team of elite reporters revealed what really happened. According to their sources, Ruben Amorim was absolutely furious with the left side of his team after the Everton defeat. The report stated that it was clear Amorim felt these players completely disregarded his tactical instructions. When players do not listen, it disrupts the entire flow of the game. Amorim knows that success hinges on every player being on the same page, and he was determined to let his feelings be known to his players. This is huge. This is the manager basically saying that his players ignored what he told them to do. That is not about making mistakes or having a bad game. That is about a fundamental breakdown in discipline and respect for the manager's authority. Who are the left side players? So who exactly are we talking about when we say the left side of the team? Based on who started the match and who played in those positions, we are looking at two main players. Luke Shaw started as the left-sided centre-back in Amorim's back three. The 30-year-old England international has been one of 4 Manchester United players to start every single Premier League game this season, along with Matthijs de Ligt, Bruno Fernandes, and Brian Buemo. Patrick Dorgu started as the left wing-back. The young Danish player had been favoured in recent matches, but he was substituted in the 61st minute when Amorim brought on Diogo Dalot to try and change things. These are the two players that Amorim was reportedly furious with. These are the players who he felt completely disregarded his instructions and let the team down. What instructions did they ignore? The big question is, what exactly did Amorim tell these players to do that they then ignored? Based on the match and the analysis from pundits, we can piece together what went wrong. Gary Neville was scathing in his criticism of Luke Shaw specifically. Neville said Shaw was ambling forward when he should have been running every single time. He said Shaw needed to push up and play like a left winger when United were chasing the game against 10 men. The problem was that Shaw stayed back in a defensive position even when United desperately needed goals. He was cautious when he should have been brave. He was passive when he should have been aggressive. If Amorim's instructions were for Shaw to get forward and provide width and attacking threat, then Shaw clearly did not follow those instructions. He stayed in his comfort zone as a defender rather than pushing high up the pitch like the manager wanted. As for Dorgu at left wing back, the issue seems to be that he was not effective enough in his attacking play. He was not getting crosses in, he was not creating chances, and he was not causing problems for the Everton defence. Whatever Amorim told him to do in that position, it was not happening on the pitch. The tactical chaos on the left side. Let me explain in more detail what went wrong tactically on United's left side. Because this was not just about two players having bad games. This was about a complete breakdown in how that side of the pitch was supposed to function. Shaw was ambling, not running. Gary Neville was brutal in his assessment of Luke Shaw's performance. On Monday Night Football, Neville said Shaw was ambling forward when he should have been sprinting. He said you cannot do that when you are chasing a game against 10 men. Neville, who played right back for Manchester United for years, said that when he played against 10 men, you would never see him staying back. He would be as wide as possible on the flank, pushing high up the pitch, trying to create overloads and cause problems for the opposition. But Shaw did not do that. He was hesitant. He was slow. He was not showing the urgency and intensity that the situation demanded. And that must have been incredibly frustrating for Amorim to watch from the touchline. The manager is screaming at his players to attack, the fans are chanting attack, 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 and your left-sided centre-back is ambling forward without any real conviction or purpose. That is not good enough. The Dalot substitution made things worse. Things got even worse when Amorim made a substitution that backfired completely. In the 61st minute, he took off Patrick Dorgu and brought on Diogo Dalot to play as the left wing back. Now here is the problem. Dalot is naturally right-footed and has never been comfortable playing on the left side. He is much better on the right, but Amorim wanted to make a change and thought Dalot might provide something different. Instead, it made things worse. Dalot and Shaw ended up getting in each other's way on the left side. There was no coordination between them. Dalot was coming inside onto his right foot, which meant he was occupying the same spaces that the midfielders wanted to use. There was no width, no penetration, and no threat. Multiple pundits criticized this substitution. They said it made no sense to bring on a right-footed player to play on the left when you are chasing a goal. They said Amorim should have been braver and brought on more attackers rather than like-for-like defensive-minded players. Why not move Shaw forward? This is where the criticism of both the players and the manager gets really interesting. Because there was an obvious solution that nobody seemed to think of during the match. Luke Shaw is a left-back. That is the position he has played for most of his career. He is comfortable going forward, he can cross the ball, he understands how to attack down the left flank. So why not just move him up to play as a left wing-back or even a left winger when you are chasing a goal against 10 men? Gary Neville specifically said this is what should have happened. He said Shaw should have been pushed forward to play like a winger, one of the centre-backs should have tucked into cover, and United should have created overloads in wide areas to stretch Everton's defence. But it did not happen. Amorim kept his three centre-backs on the pitch for the full 90 minutes. He stuck rigidly to his 3-4-3 formation even when it was obvious that a change was needed. And Shaw stayed in his defensive position rather than pushing forward. Was this because Amorim did not give Shaw permission to get forward? Or was it because Shaw ignored instructions to push up and decided to stay back where he felt more comfortable? Based on the reports that Amorim was furious with the left side, it seems like the latter might be true. The bigger problem, Amorim's rigid system. Now I need to talk about something controversial. Because while the players deserve criticism for not following instructions, Amorim himself is also getting a lot of blame for being too rigid with his tactical system. He will never change his three at the back. Ruben Amorim has made it very clear that he believes in his 3-4-3 formation. He has said multiple times that this is his system and he will stick with it no matter what. He believes that the formation is not the problem, but rather the intensity and execution from the players. But against Everton, this rigid approach looked like a fatal flaw. When you are playing against 10 men at home and you need a goal, most managers would change the formation. They would go to a back four, push more players forward, and take risks to try and win the game. Amorim did not do that. He kept 5 defenders on the pitch for the entire match. Even when United were losing, even when they desperately needed a goal, he refused to change his system. Jamie Carragher, the former Liverpool defender turned pundit, said something really interesting about this. He said Ruben Amorim feels like the first manager he has ever seen who sticks with a system rather than an idea of how to play. He said it feels like the formation is Amorim's baby and he cannot change it or alter it even when the situation demands it. The formation is his baby. Carragher's point about the formation being Amorim's baby is crucial, because it suggests that Amorim is more committed to proving his system works than he is to winning individual matches. Think about the great managers. Sir Alex Ferguson, Pep Guardiola, Jurgen Klopp. They all have preferred systems, but they also know when to adapt. They know when to change things mid-game if their plan is not working. They are flexible and pragmatic. But Amorim seems different. He seems so wedded to his 3-4-3 formation that he would rather lose a game than change it. And that is a big problem when you are managing Manchester United, where the pressure is enormous and every result matters. Carragher said this is not just about losing 3 points against Everton. This is one of those moments where people will really question the manager. This is when people start to wonder if he is the right man for the job. Why not put a midfielder in defense? Carragher also made another great point. He said if Amorim is so desperate to stick with his 3-at-the-back system, then he should have done what other managers do in these situations. Put a midfielder in defense. When you are dominating possession against 10 men, you do not need 3 specialist centre-backs. You can put a midfielder like Casemiro or Kobbie Mainoo into the back 3 to help with build-up play, and then push your defenders higher up the pitch. This is something we have seen plenty of managers do in the past. It allows you to keep your formation but also get more attacking players on the pitch. It is a smart, flexible solution to the problem. But Amorim did not do it. He kept De Ligt, Euro, and Shaw as his 3 centre-backs for the entire game. He made like-for-like substitutions rather than taking risks. And United never looked like scoring. What the players said about the tactics. It is not just pundits who are questioning Amorim's tactics. Some of the Manchester United players have also hinted at problems with the approach. De Ligt, we basically played to their strengths. Matthijs de Ligt spoke after the match and his comments were very revealing. He said that Manchester United basically played to Everton's strengths by resorting to an excessive number of crosses. Think about what de Ligt is saying here. He is essentially admitting that United's tactical approach was wrong. Everton have big, strong centre-backs in James Tarkowski and Michael Keane who are excellent in the air. So what did United do? They kept crossing the ball into the box where those defenders could head it away all night. De Ligt said United did not make enough runs into the box and did not create enough variety in their attacks. It was all too predictable and easy to defend against. This is a damning assessment from one of the team's own players. And it raises the question, if the players know that crossing the ball repeatedly is playing to Everton's strengths, why did they keep doing it? Were they following Amorim's instructions? Or were they unable to think for themselves and adapt during the game? The players cannot think for themselves. This brings us to a really interesting debate that is happening in football right now. Are modern players too coached? Are they so drilled in specific systems and patterns that they cannot adapt or think for themselves when things go wrong? Some pundits have suggested that Manchester United's players have been so thoroughly programmed to play in Amorim's 3-4-3 system that they literally do not know what else to do. When the system is not working, they just keep doing the same things over and over again because that is what they have practiced. This is a wider problem in football beyond just Manchester United. Coaches at every level, from academies to the Premier League, are prescribing every single movement and action. Players are told exactly where to stand, when to pass, where to run. There is no room for creativity or individual decision-making. The result is players who are like robots. They can execute the system when everything is going according to plan, but when they face an unusual situation like playing against 10 men, they cannot adapt. They do not have the football intelligence or the confidence to try something different. If this is what is happening at Manchester United, then it is a huge problem. Because you cannot blame the players for not following instructions if they have been so heavily coached that independent thought has been drilled out of them. The intensity problem that keeps coming back. Let me talk about another major issue that Amorim keeps mentioning. The lack of intensity. This is not just about tactics or systems. This is about the player's mentality and desire. You can feel it in the first minute. Amorim said after the match that you can feel right away in the first minute whether the team has the right level of intensity or not. Against Everton, he could feel immediately that something was wrong. The players were not at it from the start. This is really concerning because it suggests a mentality problem. These players knew how important this match was. They knew Liverpool and Manchester City had dropped points. They knew this was a huge opportunity to move up the table. And yet they came out flat and passive. Why? What is going on in the heads of these players that they cannot get themselves up for a winnable home game? Why do they show intensity in some matches but not others? Amorim said this really clearly: we cannot win games in this way. Without intensity, without desire, without that fighting spirit, Manchester United will not be successful. It does not matter how good the tactics are or how talented the players are. The biggest concern: last season's feeling. Perhaps the most worrying thing Amorim said was that he feels afraid of returning to the feeling of last season. He said that is his biggest concern. Last season was a disaster for Manchester United. They finished 8th in the Premier League. The performances were terrible. The mood around the club was toxic. It was one of the worst seasons in the club's modern history. Amorim is worried that all the progress made in recent weeks is about to be undone. That the same old problems are creeping back in. That United are about to slide back into mediocrity and chaos. And if the players are not showing intensity, if they are not following tactical instructions, if they are not fighting for every ball, then his fears might be justified. The authority crisis Amorim now faces. Let me be very direct about the situation Ruben Amorim finds himself in. He is facing an authority crisis. And unless he handles it correctly, his time at Manchester United could be very short. When players do not listen. The reports that players ignored Amorim's instructions are extremely serious. Because if players feel they can disregard what the manager tells them, then the manager has lost control of the dressing room. In football, the manager's authority is everything. Players might not always agree with the tactics, but they have to follow instructions. That is how teams function. That is how success is built. If Shaw and Dorgu really did ignore Amorim's instructions to get forward more and attack with more intensity, then Amorim has to come down hard on them. He has to make it clear that this is unacceptable. He might even have to drop them from the team to send a message to the rest of the squad. The worst thing Amorim could do is let this slide. If he does nothing, if he keeps playing these players without consequences, then other players will think they can ignore instructions too. The discipline will break down completely. Does he have the personality for this job? This brings us to a bigger question. Does Ruben Amorim have the personality and the presence to manage Manchester United? Does he have what it takes to control a dressing room full of big egos and high-paid stars? Managing at Sporting Lisbon in Portugal is one thing. The pressure is less, the scrutiny is less, and the players are generally more compliant. But at Manchester United, everything is different. The spotlight is intense, the expectations are sky-high, and the players have often seen managers come and go. Amorim needs to show that he has the steel to handle this situation. He needs to show that he can be tough when necessary. He needs to earn the respect of his players, and if some players will not give him that respect, he needs to be brave enough to get rid of them. Sir Alex Ferguson was the master of this. He never let players get bigger than the club. He shipped out players who challenged his authority, even if they were star names. David Beckham, Roy Keane, Ruud van Nistelrooy. When they crossed the line, Ferguson showed them the door. Can Amorim do the same? Time will tell. The next few weeks are critical. The reports say that Amorim will let his feelings be known to his players. That is good. He needs to have some tough conversations in the dressing room this week. He needs to lay down the law and make it clear what he expects. But more importantly, he needs to see a response in the next match. United play Crystal Palace away on Sunday, and that is now a massive game. If United go to Selhurst Park and put in another passive, disappointing performance, the pressure on Amorim will become unbearable. But if United respond with intensity, if they show fight and character, if they get a result, then maybe this Everton defeat can be a wake-up call that actually helps the team in the long run. The next few weeks will tell us whether Amorim can get control of this situation or whether it will spiral out of control. What needs to change going forward? So what does Ruben Amorim need to do to fix this mess? Let me give you my thoughts on what needs to change. Players who do not listen cannot play. First and most obviously, players who do not follow instructions cannot continue to play for Manchester United. If Shaw and Dorgu really did ignore what Amorim told them, there have to be consequences. Maybe that means dropping them for the next game. Maybe it means fining them. Maybe it means having a very direct conversation about their futures at the club. But there has to be accountability. Every other player in that squad needs to see that you cannot ignore the manager's instructions without facing consequences. That is how you build discipline and respect. More flexibility is needed. Second, Amorim needs to show more flexibility with his tactics. His rigid commitment to the 3-4-3 formation is becoming a problem. He does not have to abandon it completely, but he needs to be willing to adapt when the situation demands it. Against 10 men at home when chasing a goal, keeping 5 defenders on the pitch makes no sense. In those situations, you have to take risks. You have to push more players forward. You have to change the system to suit the moment. If Amorim cannot or will not do this, then he will keep losing games that United should win. And eventually, the club will lose patience with him. Find the right balance between system and players. Third, Amorim needs to find the right balance between coaching a system and allowing players to think for themselves. You cannot program players like robots and then blame them for not adapting when things go wrong. Yes, the players need to follow the tactical plan. But they also need the freedom and confidence to make decisions in the moment. They need to be able to recognize when something is not working and try something different. This is about empowering players rather than controlling every aspect of their game. It is about creating intelligent footballers who can solve problems, not just execute instructions. The intensity must improve. Finally, and perhaps most importantly, the intensity must improve. This is non-negotiable. United cannot keep having games where they come out flat and passive. Amorim needs to find a way to get his players mentally prepared for every single match. They need to understand that playing for Manchester United means giving 100% intensity in every game, not just the big matches against Liverpool and Chelsea. If he cannot solve this intensity problem, then nothing else will matter. You cannot succeed in the Premier League without consistent high-level intensity and desire. The fans are losing faith. Let me talk about the Manchester United fans for a moment. Because their reaction to this whole situation tells you how serious things are getting. The anger on social media. If you went on social media after the Everton match, you would have seen United fans absolutely furious. Not just frustrated. Not just disappointed. Genuinely angry. Some of that anger was directed at the players, especially those on the left side who reportedly ignored instructions. Some was directed at Amorim for his rigid tactics. And some was directed at the club in general for continuing to be a mess. The mood among United fans is getting really dark. People are starting to lose faith. They are starting to wonder if this club will ever get it right again. The calls for change are growing. More worryingly for Amorim, the calls for him to be sacked are growing louder. After the initial optimism when he first arrived, more and more fans are starting to question whether he is the right man for the job. The defeat to Everton was a tipping point for many. It was the kind of result that makes people lose confidence in a manager. And once you lose the fans, it is very hard to win them back. Amorim is not in immediate danger of being sacked, but the pressure is definitely building. If results do not improve quickly, those calls for change will become impossible to ignore. Trust is eroding. Gary Neville made a great point about this. He said that results like the Everton defeat erode trust. Trust in the manager, trust in the players, trust in the project. United fans have been through so many false dawns. So many times they have thought the club was turning a corner, only to slide back into mediocrity. They are tired of it. They are skeptical. And their patience is running very thin. Amorim needs to rebuild that trust. But the only way to do it is through performances and results on the pitch. Words mean nothing anymore. The fans need to see evidence of progress. Where United go from here. So what happens next for Manchester United and Ruben Amorim? Let me give you my honest assessment of where things stand. Crystal Palace is now enormous. The Crystal Palace match on Sunday has suddenly become absolutely massive. United are going to Selhurst Park, which is never an easy place to go, and they desperately need 3 points. If United can win, preferably with a good performance, it will ease the pressure and show that the Everton match was just a one-off blip. But if they lose or even draw, the crisis will deepen significantly. This is Amorim's chance to show that he can respond to adversity. That he can get his players fired up after disappointment. That he has the man-management skills to turn things around. Amorim's job is not in danger yet. Let me be clear about this because there are a lot of rumors flying around. Ruben Amorim is not getting sacked right now. Despite what some social media accounts might claim, his job is not in immediate danger. The club is still backing him. Sir Jim Ratcliffe and Ineos want to give him time to build something. They do not want to fall into the trap of constantly changing managers every few months. But, and this is important, that support is not unlimited. If results continue to be poor, if performances do not improve, if the players keep ignoring his instructions, then eventually the club will have no choice but to make a change. The transfer window might be crucial. The January transfer window is coming up in a few weeks. This could be crucial for Amorim. If the club backs him with some signings, players who fit his system and have the right mentality, it could help turn things around. But if United do not invest in January, if Amorim is expected to work with the same squad that is currently struggling, then his task becomes much harder. We will have to wait and see what happens. But the next few weeks leading up to the transfer window are absolutely critical for Amorim's future. My final thoughts. After everything we have discussed, what is my honest take on this situation? Let me give you my unfiltered opinion. The reports that players ignored Amorim's instructions are deeply concerning. If true, it represents a serious breakdown in discipline that must be addressed immediately. Amorim cannot let this slide. He has to show that he is in charge and that there are consequences for players who do not follow his orders. However, Amorim is also partly to blame. His rigid commitment to the 3-4-3 formation is becoming a real problem. Against 10 men at home when chasing a goal, you have to be more flexible. You have to take risks. Keeping 5 defenders on the pitch for 90 minutes in that situation is simply not acceptable. The intensity issue is the biggest concern for me. This is something that keeps coming back again and again with this United team. Some games they show fight and desire, other games they are flat and passive. Until this is fixed, United will continue to be inconsistent. Amorim is not in immediate danger of being sacked, but he is definitely under pressure. The next few matches will be crucial. If United can bounce back and string together some wins, the mood will improve. But if they continue to struggle, the calls for change will become very loud. The situation is serious but not yet critical. Amorim still has time to turn things around. But he needs to act decisively, show more flexibility, and demand better from his players. If he can do those things, there is still hope. If he cannot, his time at Manchester United might be shorter than anyone expected. Wrapping up. Thank you so much for reading this deep dive into the dressing room chaos at Manchester United and Ruben Amorim's fury at players who ignored his instructions. This is a developing story, and we will continue to bring you updates as more information emerges. Make sure you subscribe to United Daily Updates on YouTube if you have not already. We are your most trusted source for inside information about Manchester United. We bring you the stories that others miss, the analysis you need, and the truth about what is really happening at the club. Hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload. We will be covering the Crystal Palace match in detail, and we will have all the latest news on Amorim, the players, and the future of this club. Drop a comment below and let me know what you think. Do you believe players ignored Amorim's instructions? Should Shaw and Dorgu be dropped? Is Amorim being too rigid with his tactics? I want to hear from you. This is a community, and your opinions matter. The next few weeks are going to be crucial for Manchester United. How Amorim handles this crisis will define his time at the club. Will he show the strength and flexibility needed to succeed at this level? Or will the same old problems drag United down once again? We will be here every step of the way, bringing you all the news and analysis you need. This is United Daily Updates, your most trusted source for everything Manchester United. Thanks for reading, and we will see you in the next one.